Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Clematis, a very popular flowering vine, but let's be honest, there are ones that are not vines. So we should stop and think and say, we need to investigate, we need to explore, and we need to know how to put these into the landscape. So it's just not, we're going to put it on a trellis and the fence and make sure we have shade on its roots and that's, and a bunch of other little things and expect it to be all climbing. They aren't. And there are more aggressive, less aggressive, small flowered, large flowering, big ones, small ones. So there is a lot to investigate to get the right clematis for the right spot in your garden, particularly if you have a small garden and you really want to go and do something with it that's a little more unusual. Now, the book that I'd like to tell you about will help you with all of that. It's called The Plant Lover's Guide to Clematis. It's by Linda Butler. It is in association with the Royal Botanical Gardens Kew. This doesn't mean that it was written in Britain. Let's be honest, even the spelling in this book is American. So, let's see how this book measures up. First of all, the photography is fantastic. Secondly, the coverage of the different types and groups is very good. And as I went through, I recognized many of the clematis either I have sold, growing, or are growing in my garden now. So in other words, this book does focus on, let's say, northeastern United States and Canada. So it will work. But it also does the evergreen varieties and some of the hardier integrifolia types, etc. So it does cover the wide gamut of clematis. It covers designing with clematis, whether you're putting it up and through plants and different types of plants. If they're going into containers, it's covered. Are they large flowered? Are they small flowered? Are they going to like a little bit more shade or a little bit more sun? This is all covered. Propagating is also done. How can I say this? Propagating clematis, I usually can't be bothered. Simply because there are so many clematis varieties out there for me to choose from. It's easier for me to go out and buy a 2-year-old plant and put it into my garden than start it and propagate it and wait for expectations. I know I'm impatient, but let's be honest, this is what we really need to do if we have a small space or little time on our hands. So, what you want to do is you want to pick this book up and start using it as an investigative tool. It covers something like about 196 different clematis. And I really like it because the photographs are large enough that you can actually see the flowers, how they're used, gives you accurate blooming times, pruning, light exposure, heights, which is always interesting, and whether or not you can use it to climb up through trees that they'll tolerate the light shade or heavy shade of doing so, but also the zones that they will successfully grow in. So there are a number of varieties in here that I know and have sold and I do like. And the other thing is that these clematis have all been tested, mind you, in Britain by Kew, to be good garden varieties. So when you go through, these are the varieties they found that people will have success with in their gardens. And it doesn't matter whether, again, it's an unusual form, the large form, small form, the more down-facing types as well. And this includes all the tangudicas, the integrifolias, All of these that are really, really quite neat. And I have a lot of interest in clematis. I do like them. They're not the easiest to grow in some cases, but they're kind of nice. And I think we need to go and pick out a few and tell people, yeah, whatever, you can buy these. The interesting thing is that it does give you different places to buy the plants in different countries, including Canada. Now, this is a very limited list, and it's so limited that, let's be honest, your local garden centers are probably not on the list. And so you're going to have to go and do your own research, you're going to investigate, etc. One of the ones that I really like and has been around a long time and is successful in this area is called Hildene. It's one of the clematis that is deciduous. Flowers are not large nor small. It likes light exposures, medium to full sun. If you want it to flower really well, it does need the full sun, but it really hates the sun from the ground up. In other words, it likes something in front. Pruning, okay? Cut it down to a foot in early spring. That's it. After the hard pruning in winter, it'll flower in July and August. It responds well to manipulation of standard pruning advice. In other words, you basically can't go wrong with this one. If it's pruned by about 1/2 of its length after the first wave of bloom, it will rebloom in autumn right up until frost, somewhere in there. In the landscape, it likes to be mixed, you're not going to believe this, with one of the oldest varieties of roses, and uses the rose as something to climb on, and it's called New Dawn. And everybody knows New Dawn, right? As a climber, it's pink. So it complements the flower colors, and it's hardy to zone 4. That's the type of information you're going to get on different types of clematis in this book. It is that good, that accurate, and you will find clematis that are available in your area in this book. I found a dozen that I know of that I either sold or I grow. And that's kind of nice to be able to get a book, but it also allows you to go and take a look at others. I remember years ago getting a clematis called Polish Spirit, and it was good, except that a lot of people didn't like it because the flowers weren't large enough in those days. It's a violet purple. It likes a little bit of shade. Well, it was one that we didn't research well enough for the customer, so the customer didn't know how to be successful with it. And nobody, ever told them to prune it down to a foot in the spring. So I think this one is another one of those ones that needs to be revisited. And the thing is that it is hardy to zone 3. Now there's a clematis. Okay, so it's a violet purple. And it mixes well. Believe it or not, this is one of the examples. Mixes well with an ornamental grass, Zabrinus, which is the larger Miscanthus Zabrinus, or Miscanthus sinensis Zabrinus, and actually grows up through it. So yeah, you can do it. And there's a picture of it doing and being utilized that way in this book. So it is an extremely good book. It's called The Plant Lover's Guide to Clematis by Linda Bueltier, with the help of Kew Gardens. It is published by Timber Press and distributed in Canada by Thomas Allen. So it is definitely available. It is definitely a book well worth adding to your library. not only just for the inspiration, but also for the information that it contains. I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.